live from New York. Technical difficulties. Absolutely love that first show today. My name's Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on today's episode of the Harvey Hour. Very shortly, I will introduce him initially, though, but shortly I'll be joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. First, I want to ask, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad we got things going here.
Yeah.
Took a few minutes, but we're with you.
Absolutely. All right, we got a lot to talk about for today's show, a lot to get into because there's been some updated things that have happened in the last week or so. The first thing would be the Trey Hendrickson thing, which I'm going to get into very, very shortly. But also Micah Parsons, his situation that still needs to be dealt with as the season is rapidly approaching. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. But let's start with the first topic of today's show, the solo topic of today's show, which is indeed the Trey Hendrickson situation, because finally, they've agreed to something, which means that Trey Hendrickson will be out on the field for week 1, presumably, because he hasn't really done anything in practice, hasn't done anything in the preseason, but my guess will be he'll be out there for week 1 against the Cleveland Browns. But I don't think it'll make much of a difference to start the year, because as we've seen over Joe Burrow's time with the Cincinnati Bengals, week 1s and week 2s and sometimes pushing week 3 and maybe week 4, like we saw over the past couple seasons, don't tend to go that well for Cincinnati for some reason. It doesn't matter what team it is. It could be the Patriots. It could be the Browns. No matter what team it is, early in the season, the Bengals can't get it together. But they have Trey Hendrickson back, so it's not all terrible. Or is it? Because I think this isn't really a win-win situation. It's like we got here somehow. It's not a multi-year deal. Diana Rossini posted on X as soon as this pay raise got announced that the initial offer the Bengals sent Trey Hendrickson was a 3-year, $95 million deal, which equates to $31.66 million per year. But the big thing was the thing that Trey Hendrickson was pushing for was the guaranteed money after that first year, because then we would be in a similar situation of, well, am I going to get my money? You can get off of me. What's going on here? So this actually opens up the door for Trey Hendrickson to find, a better situation next year. This is only a 1-year deal, which I think is the right way to go. And that's why I think that this goes far beyond just Trey Hendrickson, because the defense, even with Henderson presumably going to be out there, their front seven still ranked 25th, their secondary is ranked 28th, and their defense overall is ranked 27th. So the defense was bad regardless, but we knew that. The offensive line, that's never healthy, they're ranked 31st in the NFL. Their offense is ranked totally 7th. They also have no run game. People like Chase Brown, he's not good enough. They were not effective on the ground game last year. They had to rely heavily on Joe Burrow. And I think that's why the Bengals, it's going to be very difficult for them to get back into playoff contention and have them go back to where they were a number of years ago, 4 years ago, when they were actually basically one play away, if the offensive line could hold up, to winning the Super Bowl. Jamar Chase broke free. Aaron Donald was in Joe Burrow's face, brought him down. If he had that half second more, we'd be looking at a Joe Burrow, first year fully starting, winning a Super Bowl and lifting that Lombardi trophy. I think right now, the Bengals are in deep, deep water. They're not going to go far. Will they make the playoffs? We'll talk about that later on in the show. That's my hope, because I had Joe Burrow winning the MVP last year. And I really think that if the Bengals just won 10 games, we may be seeing Joe Burrow having that MVP trophy instead of Josh Allen or even Lamar Jackson, because Joe Burrow put up ungodly numbers in a situation that was sort of against him. I know we could talk about the T. Higgins and the Jamar Chase and all of that, but this entire team has run through Joe Burrow. He's had some of the fewest play action. He has some of the fewest motion in that offensive scheme. So it's really him snapping the ball and then figuring out what the defense gives him, because there is no sort of clue on what the defense is doing besides what Joe Burrow can dissect as soon as he snaps the ball. The Bengals are in very, very treacherous waters here because their division's getting harder. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, they just put up an insane offensive performance last year. People argue that Lamar Jackson should have won the MVP last year. I think right now the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have a better quarterback situation and a better wide receiver situation with them replacing Russell Wilson / Justin Fields with Aaron Rodgers, and then DK Metcalf replacing George Pickens, who I always thought was an issue in the locker room. So, and they are sort of the same personality type where they could absolutely blow off the hinges and go crazy out on the field and commit stupid penalties. That's always a concern. So I think all in all, the way I'm looking at it is simply this. the Bengals, this is a do or die moment for them. This season will determine the future of the Bengals, because I think if they miss the playoffs again and they go 9-8 or worse, which is completely on the table because they go from having the easiest quarterback group that they played against last year to now a top 10 quarterback, the top 10 quarterback schedule this year with arguably a worse defense, you could argue. What are they going to look like now when they just went 9-8 with Joe Burrow putting up solid MVP numbers? I'm very worried. And the reason why I say do or die is because I thought Zach Taylor should have gotten fired last year because the defense was terrible. The offense, Joe Burrow had to meet with Zach Taylor basically early in the season. They couldn't figure out anything. Joe Burrow was obviously pissed off that his defense kept failing and failing and failing and failing. And so much so that against the Baltimore Ravens, I'll bring this up, they called run after run after run, which ultimately led into a rookie punter botching a snap, which then they obviously, Money Mac, missed the field goal. And then I think maybe on the first play that the Ravens got, or a very early play in that overtime period, Derrick Henry runs 50-plus yards, sets up the game-winning field goal for the Baltimore Ravens. There's not much more Joe Burrow could have done last year. But now in this situation with a more difficult schedule, going to play Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson in back-to-back games late in the year, what is this team going to look like? I think Zach Taylor, if people are predicting, if the defense falters like people are expecting it based on the ratings, if Joe Burrow puts up the same performance he does, I don't think he'll fall off a cliff. This team could very well have a losing record, and I think at that point you have to pull the plug. Now, technically, Zach Taylor is signed as the coach until 2026, but we've seen coaches sign big year, long-term contracts and then get fired 2 years into their 5-6-year deal. So I think that this is the last year for Zach Taylor. This is a do-or-die year for him because obviously you have Jamar Chase long-term, you have T. Higgins long-term, you have Joe Burrow long-term. They're all making massive amounts of money. This is Trey Hendrickson's last year probably with the team, because he can't deal with another lowball offer from Mike Brown and put up with this nonsense that he has for the past couple seasons. This is your do-or-die moment. This is where you're going to need to make a deep playoff run and get over that hump, because I think Joe Burrow in the playoffs against Patrick Mahomes, now I know he lost that very last one in Burrowhead, which, by the way, you got to stop with that. Just feeding fuel to the fire for the Kansas City Chiefs. You got to stop that. And by the way, contractually, now that we talk about the NFL, we have to talk about this. Congratulations, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, on your engagement. There you go. Enough talking about that now. Let's move back to our regularly scheduled programming. They desperately need to do something big this season, because I do think this is Zach Taylor's last year. This is obviously Trey Hendrickson's last year. And this is the crazy thing. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later with Micah Parsons. I don't understand when these owners, when these GMs, when the front office personnel, when they wait and wait and wait, when you know, fans know, everybody knows, oh yeah, it's next guy up gets the big deal. What I find funny is Trey Hendrickson last year was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. More than double guys who got massive extensions and massive guaranteed money just this offseason. He had, I believe, 11 first-place votes for Defensive Player of the Year. Myles Garrett, who's making $40 million a year, and then T.J. Watt, who I believe is making like $123 million guaranteed or something like that, some ungodly amount of money. He had 3. So combined, they had 8 first-place votes. Trey Hendrickson had 11. And yet, he has to play on a 1-year, $30 million deal. Now, it is a pay raise, going from 16 to 30, but he deserves much more than that. And now you could franchise tag him, but that would be 38 to 40 million, depending on what the salary cap looks like. But at that point, you might be like, okay, well, I could have saved money signing him 3 years, $95 million. If I just guaranteed that second year, we'd have him for 3 more seasons. And it's not like, well, he's 30, turning 31. Well, Myles Garrett is around that age. TJ Watt's around that age. So it's not like these guys are falling off cliffs. In fact, Trey Hendrickson last 2 years has 35 sacks, leads the NFL. He's one of 3 players to have back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. I think it's utterly ridiculous how we come up with these excuses for players, and I'm going to talk about this when we get into a topic a little bit later, talking about Shedeur Sanders, about everybody seems to, toe the line with some of their favorite players to give them a lot more breathing room than they maybe deserve. So I think when it's all said and done, the Bengals are screwed. Late in the season, they're screwed. They have no efficient running game. They have no great, healthy offensive line. Their defense is a massive question mark, getting cooked by Washington Commander backups. The running game, like I mentioned, Chase Brown, he's good. Is he going to help Joe Burrow out? Probably not. The offensive line for sure isn't. They've never gotten offensive line right when it comes to Joe Burrow. The wide receivers, I'm not afraid of that. The tight end, not afraid of that. Defensively, I'm terrified. I think Zach Taylor, this is his last year. This is obviously Trey Hendrickson's last year. You have Joe Burrow, but it's just another year of Joe Burrow's prime that you're wasting. We should have seen Joe Burrow lifting a Lombardi already. But this is the workings of Mike Brown and Zach Taylor's offensive scheme. And Lou, I forget the defense coordinator's last name. I'm going to screw it up so badly. I have it here in front of me. Lou Anarumo, excuse me. His defensive performance last year, brilliant, phenomenal. I'm not asking for a top 10 defense. I'm asking for competency because they made the Super Bowl with an average defense. I believe they were ranked 14th or 16th, somewhere around there, hovering around 50% basically. I'm not asking for top 10. I'm not asking for 2000s Ravens. I'm not asking for 2018 Patriots. I'm asking for competency. And when you have a guy like Trey Hendrickson who's carrying your defense, and I'll say it again like I said last week, where Trey Hendrickson has 35 sacks in the last 2 seasons. The next highest Bengal has 8. That's not a defensive line. That's something Trey Hendrickson could do in half a year. And the next highest Bengal did it in 2 seasons. You got to figure this out. You lost Sam Hubbard. He retired. You need to figure out. And Shamar Stewart, it took you 6 months, basically, to figure this out. To figure out his contract situation, because you put a little, thing in his contract saying if he did anything, got arrested or anything like that, you'd strip him all of his guaranteed money. I don't know if I would do that and make him an example of that, finally putting that in his contract. Don't know if I would have done that. And he's supposed to be your replacement for Trey Hendrickson. So you screwed up the replacement situation for a long time, and you somehow couldn't come to an agreement just because Trey Hendrickson, he clearly wasn't asking for, bank-breaking money. He's asking for $31 million a year. These guys are making $41 million a year. All he was asking for was guaranteed money in the second year, and this could have been done 3 months ago. But we dragged it out until August 25th or August 24th over absolute complete nonsense. So good job to the Cincinnati Bengals. Great job. All right, let's get to our next topic here because this is a yearly thing now. Let's go. The Micah Parsons situation. Now, Week 1 status, we're rapidly approaching to Week 1 against the defending champions in Philly. And Micah Parsons, last time we saw him, was lying on the medical table, resting, because of a supposed back injury, which the MRI came back clean. So I don't know how much of a back injury he has besides maybe a sore back. Clearly not anything enough to be worrying about if I was Micah Parsons. Obviously, we know this is all about the contract. And of course, who's behind these contract situations if it wasn't the one and only Jerry Jones, who can't get out of his own way? He loves to be in the media. Now he has to do a documentary that's taking place right now. And we talked about this last year. You had to figure out Micah Parsons' deal last year. And we saw last year where CeeDee Lamb was signed in the 11th hour, and Dak Prescott, he got his extension at the 11th hour in the 59th minute. We have to figure this thing out. This is a Jerry Jones classic. So I think right now what I find absolutely stupid is that Jerry Jones is saying, well, me and Micah Parsons came to this agreement. He's going to be the highest paid non-quarterback ever when it comes to salary and guaranteed money. Now, is that when they discussed it in the early spring, or is it now? If it's now, that's the case. Or if it's during the spring, that would be about $35 million per year. It's still an ungodly amount of money, but it does make somewhat of a difference when you're, $6 million a year. But this is all about Jerry Jones saying, me and Micah came to an agreement. Well, that would be okay if Micah didn't have an agent, which he does. So Jerry Jones is saying, well, I don't know why he's not just signing the deal. It's because it's against the collective bargaining agreement of the NFL. It's technically illegal to do a deal between Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons without his agent present. And that's all Micah has only been talking about. Just bring my agent to the table and we can make a deal. Jerry Jones won't do that. For reasons I don't understand. Because if you truly want Micah there, Just negotiate with his agent. It's legal. You get it done. He signs a big-time deal. You have him for the next 4 or 5 seasons. And what I also find utterly ridiculous is that Jerry Jones is saying, well, we technically have him under contract for the next 3 years, which he's saying we'll just franchise tag him until he finally gives in, which again is very, very corrupt, and I do not like that whatsoever. If I'm Micah Parsons, I'm holding on for dear life. I am not giving up. I'm not pulling a Saquon Barkley where we do this whole long out process. It's in the media. It's whatever. And then what happened to Saquon Barkley a couple years ago was that he gave in day 1 of training camp. I would miss games if I'm Micah Parsons. I don't care. I got guaranteed money still coming my way. I would sit out as long as I possibly can in order to make things right, because what Jerry Jones is doing is he's negotiating in bad faith, and he's campaigning about it. He's not doing this behind closed doors and secretively. He's doing it out in the open. And what I also find very smart, I don't think Micah has misstepped in any portion of this situation. He's not doing podcasts. He's not doing shows. He's not, portraying this out in the media, making this big thing about it, besides just publicly announcing he's requesting a trade. I think he's played this beautifully because he's not attacking Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones is attacking him and his agent. So Jerry Jones keeps making himself look worse and worse and worse. Dak Prescott says he's confident about getting Mike out there. He said in an interview, quote, "Yeah, I've got confidence. I told y'all that. I'm just going off experience, honestly, no different than mine. So I've got confidence in that, just hoping, which I know he is ready to play." He was also asked, is this a distraction? Which he said, I wouldn't say so. There's been a case of something similar to this the last 3 years, if not 4. I think people can take it however they want. I think it's kind of part of the way guys think and see things around here. When you're here in this organization, this is just how you see things are done, whether they're right, wrong, or whoever has their view about it. I find it crazy how Jerry Jones, several, dollar billionaire, massive amount of money. Cowboys are the most valuable franchise in sports, at least in the 4 major sports. The amount of money Jerry Jones can save, millions, tens of millions of dollars that Jerry Jones can save and help out his own team, which he keeps saying that he wants to win a Super Bowl. The amount of money he could save by just signing the guy before the market explodes, which again, same thing with Trey Hendrickson, same thing with CeeDee Lamb, same thing with Dak Prescott. It's so obvious that it's going to happen. And he just waits and waits and waits. There's no reason for it. Is it a game? Is it entertainment? Is it keeping the Cowboys in the media? They're already, quote, America's team, so I don't think they need it. He's always in the media. He's always doing a show, doing a podcast, doing whatever Jerry Jones does. He loves to be in the public eye. So I think by getting these deals done as soon as possible won't detract from that, because he'll always be talking to media. He'll always be saying something. He now has a Netflix documentary coming out. He just went on Michael Irvin's show. I think that this is so stupid. It's completely pointless to do because you're actually taking money away from you. You could be saving money here, but instead, what Jerry Jones wants to do is keep his name in the media. What I find now crazy is Adam Schefter came out with, an outlook of how this appears. Jerry Jones, I know, is not going to let this go, and Adam Schefter agrees. He says, and I quote, "I've heard the situation referred to as Jerry Jones's Waterloo. He doesn't want to lose it. But here's the bad side. Or rather, I think the good side, if you're Micah Parsons. It doesn't look good. It doesn't sound like Micah wants to be there. But the hope is, if Trey Hendrickson can get a deal done in Cincinnati, if Terry McLaurin can get a deal done in Washington, then there has to be a way for the Cowboys and Micah Parsons to bridge their differences somehow, as vast as they are, and get a deal done. This is the simplest contract negotiation you could possibly have. Is Micah Parsons campaigning for more money? Well, based on what we heard, no. I think Jerry Jones is actually telling the truth when it comes to the amount of money agreed. I think that the guaranteed money and the contract money, I don't think Micah Parsons is complaining about those dollars whatsoever. All that I have at least seen, all that I've at least heard, is that all Micah wants is for his agent to be present during contract negotiations. So for me, this is a real easy problem to solve. Micah plus agent equals contract. It's as simple as that. Instead, you have Micah Parsons lying on a medical table, resting because of a, quote, back injury that an MRI came back clean for, and apparently they're not even on, speaking terms now. So good job, Jerry Jones. Now, this is crazy because it's an annual thing, which means that by week 1, we'll probably see Micah out there, or at least he'll sign a deal, or at least end his hold-in. But here's my question. Is he ready to play? And you know what? I'm actually going to be a little bit critical because in the playoffs, Micah Parsons' aura kind of dips massively. He's played in 4 playoff games. He has 1 sack, and the sack came against a broken-down Buccaneers offensive line with Tom Brady fearing for his life every time he snapped the ball because it would be 1-2 in the dirt, 1-2 throwaway because his receivers were banged up, his offensive line was banged up, the offense did not look good in 2022. That's the only sack Micah Parsons has in the playoffs. The first year he was in the playoffs didn't go well. They lost to a Jimmy Garoppolo-led 49ers team. Garoppolo's currently a backup. No one trusted Garoppolo. No one believed in Garoppolo. But yet they lost to him 19-12. They got blown out by Green Bay, who's the first 17 in NFL history to win a playoff game. They got absolutely destroyed by a Jordan Love-led Packers team. That's bad. Really bad. So I will be critical on Micah Parsons. In the playoffs, he does tend to not play as well as he does in the regular season because he keeps getting runner-up defensive player of the year or being in third place or whatnot. This last year, he was banged up for most of the year, about half the year. So when it comes down to it, this deal most likely will get done. It'll get signed, or at least he'll end his hold-in and then maybe move on after this year, get franchise tag. Who knows? Who knows? It's Jerry Jones's world, and we're all living in it, apparently. All right, we're going to take a very quick break, but coming up, is Kevin Stefanski sabotaging Shedeur's chances at succeeding in the NFL? We'll talk about that, as well as we make our AFC Standings Predictions, all of that right after the end of this about 30-second break.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show, which is a Shedeur Sanders topic. So basically, at the end of the last preseason game against the Rams, Shedeur was out there, went 3 of 6 for 14 yards, got sacked 5 times. Kevin Stefanski took him out for a 2-minute drill and put in Tyler Huntley, who they released. And Tyler Huntley let him right down, kicked the game-winning field goal, and kept them undefeated in the preseason. People went berserk about this on the internet. So much so, you had a reporter asking about if Kevin Stefanski, was trying to intentionally sabotage Shedeur Sanders by not putting him in for that 2-minute drill, which he then said, and I quote, "I'm committed to his development just like all of our rookies. So we'll continue to focus on getting all of our guys better, and that's what we'll stay committed to, and that's what's important to me." So here's my question to you, Dad. Basically, you have an issue with Kevin Stefanski benching Shedeur for that 2-minute drill, and what people are saying, basically sabotaging him and his chances to succeed in the NFL thus far.
Yeah, it was odd. It was definitely odd to do that. I mean, you're coming down to the end of the game. It's a drive that could win the game with a field goal. You're giving a young player some experience in a preseason game. It doesn't count in the standings. It was a good opportunity for Shedeur Sanders to show what he had. So far in that game, though, what he had up to that point was 3 of 6, 5 sacks. One of his sacks was like a 25-yard loss. It's because he holds the ball too long. He has some issues, that's for sure. And he did not play well in that game. Maybe he would have rose to the occasion on the 2-minute drill, but we never got to see it because Stefanski benched him. And as you said, the fans and the media went wild. And they were saying that, they're criticizing Stefanski, saying he's trying to sabotage Sanders' career. You had Shannon Sharp saying this. You had Chad Ochocinco saying it. You had Hudsanda Zadi saying trying to break him by giving him limited opportunities and not providing the necessary support for growth. Skip Bayless, though, is the one that he went way over the top here. He said Stefanski is mishandling Sanders. He called Stefanski trash. That Sanders should be traded to another team that would support his development. He said the controversy comes from Sanders being pulled in the 2 minutes to go, as I mentioned, for Tyler Huntley, who did drive the team right down the field for the winning field goal and then was cut 24 hours later. And I think maybe his getting cut was Stefanski hearing it from the media and from the fans and deciding, hey, I probably did make a mistake. I'll show that, this was just part of my coaching, getting ready for the regular season and the preseason. And, Huntley's gone. He's not going to be one of our quarterbacks. So it was weird. I don't understand it. And, according to Bayless, he says they rigged it against him. He had no shot. I'm outraged. I'm sickened. I'm saddened by the way he is treated by the sorry-ass Browns and the sorry-ass Stefanski. That's what he said. Derek Carr echoes skepticism about why Sanders was not allowed to finish the 2-minute drill. You look at the Browns, are the Browns the best place for Sanders to develop?
Yes.
Do you think so?
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know. I think it's doubtful.
I'll tell you why with my
the Browns,
take,
in my mind, are one of the poorest run franchises in the league. They're carrying what was 4 quarterbacks. They said they were going to carry 4 quarterbacks. What they do today or yesterday, they traded Kenny Pickett to the Raiders. Is that where he went? Yeah. Because the Raiders' backup quarterback's hurt, and so the Raiders picked up Kenny Pickett. They said they weren't going to trade him, but away he went. That leaves them with Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and Sanders, and a one-winged Deshaun Watson. So can Sanders develop in the Browns organization? I don't know. I think you look at it; they're not going to be good. I don't think.
That's a given. Yeah.
They're going to start Joe Flacco. I think there's a very good chance Shedeur Sanders starting by week 12.
Week 12. That's interesting. How would you say, or what would you say is the easiest way to develop? Because in my mind, it's playing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that's why
the best way to develop is be out on the field.
Correct. And that's why I said Shedeur has the best opportunity with Cleveland to start. Or rather to develop.
I don't know, but they have 3 quarterbacks.
Correct. Correct. But you look around the NFL, how many chances would Shedeur have to play in not just for, a game, maybe for multiple games?
Jets.
There's no way. They have Justin Fields.
Justin Fields, if they're going to stick with him. He's a big question mark.
I agree.
Big question mark.
I agree.
And you know what? If the Jets had drafted him and Fields, even if he played, serviceable, if he was a game manager, there's still going to be, the fans are going to be pounding the table for Sanders because he's a big name and New York is a big market.
Correct.
So I think he would have had a chance to play in New York.
Well, even with Cleveland, they're pounding the table saying for him to play. And this game was a perfect example of what every single analyst, maybe every single, scouting department was talking about with Shedeur Sanders. He didn't play in one singular 2-minute drill, and it was DEFCON 1. That's simply the reason why, and Albert Breer exactly said that in an article he wrote Monday. Shedeur Sanders is not a starting quarterback right now. And we saw it against the Rams. Dillon Gabriel is the much more ready starting quarterback because against the Rams, which, by the way, they were complaining about Shedeur Sanders playing with backups and whatnot. Against more of the Rams' second string and maybe some of their starters, Dillon Gabriel put up a very respectable 12 of 19 for 129 yards and a touchdown. Shedeur Sanders with backups, playing against backups, went 3 of 6 for 14 yards and got sacked 5 times for a net negative of 41 yards on those sacks, which bring his total offensive yardage to negative 27 yards. And what I find absolutely stupid is that these people like, well, the backup offensive line, the sixth-string offensive line, you think that these guys on the offensive line, honestly, who are trying to make it in the NFL, to have a shot to make a team, would just say, let's get this quarterback killed in the backfield? No, absolutely not. And I believe 3 out of the 5 of the offensive linemen who were during Shedeur's dropbacks, they got released already. What do you expect? You're not going to put Shedeur Sanders in with the starting lineup because he's not the starting quarterback. You're not going to put him with the second string line because he's not the second string quarterback. You're going to be putting him in the exact role he is, which is third string. Did the Patriots quarterback who they released, Wooldridge, if I'm pronouncing his name right, did he play with the starting Patriots offensive line? No, he played with guys who were backups and fifth stringers. Because why? He's like the third or would have been the third or fourth string quarterback on the Patriots. You're not putting him in with the starting offensive line. So this is utterly ridiculous. Absolutely stupid. And in fact, Tyler Huntley, with I believe that same offensive line, drove him right down the field to kick the game-winning field goal. Drove him right down. And if you look at it, because Pro Football Focus does the who's more responsible for pressures and sacks, you take a look at Shedeur Sanders. If you take out Patrick Mahomes, who only, I believe, had 5 dropbacks with pressures, and you do 6 or more, Shedeur Sanders in preseason week 3 was number 1. 55% of the pressures were his fault. 4 out of the 5 of his sacks were his fault. So we could talk about the offensive line all we want. Based on the data, based on the numbers, 4 out of 5 of Shedeur Sanders' sacks were his fault. Because it looked like he was surfing waves instead of actually dropping back in the pocket and trying to make it throw.
Yeah, well,
he did not move up. He wasn't that mobile besides going backwards.
I don't disagree with anything you've said, but when the coach says I'm committed to his development, he doesn't let him play 1 2-minute drill in the whole preseason.
He wasn't playing well.
Yeah.
3 of 6, 14 yards, got sacked 5 times.
Let's remember when we first saw C.J. Stroud
in
playing against him,
week 1.
against the Patriots. He looked like, wow, this guy was a second pick in the draft. He's horrible.
Well,
yeah, he was terrible.
Well, you had to realize
they only
he was
let
the
him play
starting
8 or 9 plays, but so you really couldn't see much. But he was horrible.
He was terrible.
So,
I agree.
And as you say, in order to get better, you got to be out there on the field, and the preseason's a good time to do it. You don't need to play Joe Flacco much. Dillon Gabriel, I'm not sure why he's even there, actually, if Shedeur Sanders would be the one that they'd be looking to down the road as the future. I guess they don't know. They drafted Gabriel before they drafted Sanders. He went in the 3rd round, so it's hard to say right now. But I don't think you sit the kid down in the 2-minute drill. You only hurt his confidence. And
Shedeur Sanders does not need a confidence boost.
Well,
he has everybody in national media and everybody close to him since he was in high school fawning over his ability. That he does not need a confidence.
Maybe.
He's got a big enough ego and a big enough confidence, whatever you want to call it, whatever label you want to put on what Shedeur Sanders has. He has enough where this shouldn't ding him that hard.
Well, we'll see what Stefanski does next.
Well, and that's the thing. Based on what the odds just came out about, Kevin Stefanski has the 5th best odds to be the first coach fired at the end of this year or during this year.
I can see why.
I don't think Stefanski
He's off
would
to a
ruin
good
his
start.
chances by screwing himself over by all of this.
That's what he's done so far. I think he's on his way to being fired because almost everyone in the country is criticizing him.
But I think that's utterly stupid because we can't say, well, he was doing so well and he needs that development. He needs to be in there for those situations. He was 3 of 6 for 14 yards, and when he was out there, the offense netted a grand total of negative 27 yards. And we're saying, I wish he was out there more. And if honestly, thank God Stefanski took him out. He could have been hurt again. He was already out 1 preseason game with an oblique injury. You're going to put him out there. He's going to go 3 of 6, 14 yards, and get sacked 5 times. Well, let's keep him in behind an offensive line that had trouble holding up, and Shedeur Sanders was seeing ghosts in the backfield.
Then they should have pulled him sooner, because I think getting to the 2-minute drill and not letting him play that when he didn't get to play one the whole preseason, I think was the wrong decision.
Well, he played the first week against the.
I thought he looked pretty good.
I think he looked really, really good. And then in this game, he looked terrible. And by the way, we have to acknowledge, if this was any other quarterback who got drafted in the 5th round of the draft, who fell in the 5th round and puts up a performance like this, they may get cut. They just might get cut.
No.
This is unusual circumstances, because Shedeur Sanders, just take out the name and just put in the player himself with no title attached to him. Just the numbers, just the data, just the intangibles. A, he's not a starting quarterback. B, he would only be a solidified backup on a very few number of teams. And C, he can't afford a performance like this because it only negatively affects the chances of him moving up in the depth chart, which obviously he isn't, because Dillon Gabriel got announced today that he is the official backup quarterback. Now, am I saying that he doesn't play a single game this year? No, I'm not. I do think he actually gets in there and plays a game or 2 or 3 or maybe more. You think he's going to be in there by week 12?
I do.
I don't think he's going to jump Dillon Gabriel at all this
I think
season.
the Browns will be, they'll be at the bottom of the league by week 12.
Oh, I completely agree. And by the way, when we did the over-unders in the spring, I said Browns, I believe they're 4.5 over-under wins. I picked them with the under. I think they're going to be the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Your season starts off with home against the Bengals, at Ravens, home against the Packers, at Lions.
0.
That's 0 for 4.
No wins.
Home against the Vikings, which defense last year was really great. Then at Pittsburgh, home against Miami, at Patriots. You may go 1-7 in those 8 games.
Yeah.
Maybe you throw Dillon Gabriel there. Then you're at Jets after a week 9 bye, home against the Ravens, at Raiders, home against the Niners, home against the Titans, at Bears, home against the Buffalo Bills, home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then finally, to wrap up the season, you're at Cincinnati.
That's a very tough schedule.
It's an incredibly difficult schedule. Joe Flacco may get killed in the first 4 games because those defenses are brutal.
He's not the most...
Minus Cincinnati. Brutal defenses.
Yeah, well, he's not the most mobile guy out there.
Correct. He's 40 years old at this point.
Yeah.
You have a brand new offensive coordinator. I think the defense will be good enough. The Bears had a top-tier defense a couple years ago, number 1 defense in the league, and then they, took a slight hit last year. So I think they're going to be a very serviceable defense. Their offense is going to be nothing. I don't think anyone's really going to have massive impact. So you had a banged-up offensive line last year. Who knows what their health's going to be this year. Stefanski's still coaching for his job right now. I don't think sabotaging Shedeur Sanders' development, I think that is, first of all, the fact that they even have to ask that question is so ridiculous. Because what coach would intentionally sabotage a quarterback's chances when his job's on the line? I think that the fact that we're even talking about this just proves that Shedeur Sanders is in a select category of just unique situations, because he's a 5th-round quarterback who played okay for preseason week 1, was out for preseason week 2 with an injury, and then that 3rd preseason game, he went 3-6, and his offense totaled up a grand total of negative 27 yards. And he was surfing waves instead of playing quarterback. He was just ducking, hiding, whack-a-mole at that point. What are we doing here? All right, let's get into our final topic of today's show, which is we're making our AFC predictions. We always do this. We make our predictions throughout the season. We have one at this point because we didn't do it before the preseason. We have one change, one singular change by the time the season ends. Mostly it's about midway through the year for massive injuries. Maybe in the first half of the year, we alter it at that point, or we may keep it depending on it. I find this very interesting. If we both look at our picks, and we'll get into it. But let's begin. You'll start us off with the AFC East picks.
Okay, so my first pick, no big surprise. I have Buffalo winning the East, the AFC East. They have the reigning MVP and Josh Allen. They have James Cook, who they re-signed at running back. He had a great year last year, and he seems to be getting better every year. I don't think they have any glaring weaknesses, but the offensive line may be a question mark. They don't have any real star on defense either, but they managed to play as a team. They have Josh Allen, who's last year was great, and their wide receiver core maybe a little better this year. So I think they'll, and they're in a kind of what I think is generally not a very strong division. And so I think they'll win the AFC East reasonably easy. Second, I am maybe a surprise here. I have the Patriots. I am a Patriots fan, so, maybe that's not too much of a surprise to you listening out there. I mean, they upgraded the receiver core. They got Stephon Diggs now. They also have Hollins and Kyle Williams and the receiving core, along with some of the people they brought back. And so I think that Drake May's got more weapons now than he had. The defense is upgraded as well with Carlton Davis coming in to play opposite Gonzalez. I think that's a pretty big improvement. They got a new defensive coordinator in Terrell Williams, who was with Detroit. So I think that he'll have some good schemes for them. They upgraded their defensive line. But will the offensive line improve? I mean, it's been so bad for so long. You would think they'd find a way to make it better. And will Drake May, cut down on the turnovers this year? I can understand why he had turnovers last year. He was the only player out there on offense sometimes. And the running game, Ramondre Stevenson having a hard time hanging on to the ball. Will that improve? We'll have to see. But I do think that with the new coach and Variable and a new outlook, fresh start, I think the Patriots, some people have them winning 11 games this year, and that would get them into the playoffs. I don't see them getting into the playoffs, but I do think they'll be second in the AFC East. Moving right along now, Miami. This is desperation time for Mike McDaniel, I think, and I don't think he did much to help his case. If Tua gets hurt, look who comes in after him, Zach Wilson. How could he be the backup quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, particularly given that Tua has an injury history? You got Zach Wilson as the backup. I think that is, if that happens, I'd say Miami may even be last in the division. But as it is, I think it's up to Tua. He's got to stay healthy, and he's got to be very good. The secondary is terrible, and the defense is average at best. So I see Miami third in the division in the AFC East. The Jets, same old Jets, I'm afraid, this year. You got a new head coach in Aaron Glenn. Maybe that's a good thing. He brought in a whole new coaching staff, so it's all brand new again, starting fresh again, yet again, the Jets starting fresh again. It really depends on Fields. If he plays well, they could win some games because the defense is still solid, but they got to count on staying healthy because they lack depth on defense. But I see the Jets being the same old Jets and maybe last in the division, although it's going to be a fight with Miami to see who's last. Okay, moving right along here. The NFC North. My first pick, no surprise here, it's Baltimore. And they have Jackson and Henry. What more do we have to say? They lead one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the league. The receivers, I think, will be better with Flowers healthy. Lamar, even with Flowers hurt last year, Lamar had 41 TD passes last year and led all quarterbacks in explosive passing rate. He'll continue to do that, I think. I don't see why he wouldn't. He's in the peak of his career right now. And Derrick Henry seems to be ageless. And the way he played last year with those breaking out those big, long runs, they'll count on him to do that again. The one thing they need to prevent is these fourth quarter collapses that they had last year. They'd be way ahead in games, and then the teams would catch up in the fourth quarter, make it close. And in some of those games, they lost. So they can't let that happen. And we're going to talk about the playoffs a little bit here when we get through our picks. So we'll have a few things to say about Baltimore as we know their history in the playoffs. My next pick here is Cincinnati. I think the one sentence that describes them: incredible offense and bad defense. And you went through the analysis of their defense. Thank God they signed Trey Hendrickson, even if it's only for 1 year. Just think what the new defensive coordinator, Al Golden, would think if he lost Trey Hendrickson with the rest of that defense, which is not very good. Poor Bengals, 4-7 in one-score games. They need to start the year better, and I think Zach Taylor at least figured that out. He had Joe Burrow out there in the first preseason game. He had the starting out there, he's going to have them, not be so rusty. I mean, last year, T. Higgins sat out for a long stretch, and I think that hurt them when they first started. Maybe the Trey Hendrickson sitting out here doing the hold-in, is going to hurt them this time around. But they got to win. They got to be at least 2-2 after the first 4 games. If they do that, that will be the best they've done in about the last 5 years at the beginning of the season, and that could carry them along. I see them second in the division. They signed Trey Hendrickson. I think that will be great. If they hadn't done that, the defense would be even worse than it was last year. They couldn't let that happen. So, second for them. Third, I have Pittsburgh, and I think the phrase that describes them, old team with an ancient Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. They do have DK Metcalf. That was a nice addition, and Jalen Ramsey too. They have T.J. Watt. But will they be able to run the ball? They don't have Najee Harris, and I think running the ball is going to be key with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback because he's pretty predictable now, and he's not as mobile as he once was. So you got to have a decent running game to set up the pass for him. Will the D be as good as it was last year? The defense, I'm not so sure. We'll have to wait and see. T.J. Watt, a great player, but their defense starts the year great, and then it kind of fizzles. I think they get tired. Maybe they don't have enough depth, but we'll have to wait and see. Mike Tomlin always finds a way to make the playoffs, but I think it's going to be really hard for him this year, and I'm not sure I don't think they're going to get there, actually. Okay, last and not least, as you might expect, with all of our criticism of the Cleveland Browns,
Proper criticism,
a team that we think is the worst run in the NFL. We have them last, or at least I do. We'll see what
I do too.
Nate comes up with. I'm pretty sure he has it too.
Yeah, no shot.
The defense should be good with Myles Garrett. I mean, they had the highest pressure rate in the NFL last year at 38.4%. But aside from Jerry Jeudy, who have they got on offense? I mean, it's questionable whether they have any quarterback. Joe Flacco, he's out there. He's a statue. Dylan Gabriel, put up a few good numbers here, but he's a rookie. Shedeur Sanders, Stefanski being pummeled by the way he's treated Sanders so far. Never really got much playing time in the preseason. Yanked when he could have maybe shown something in a 2-minute drill. So I don't know. I think he'll be starting, actually, by week 12. I mentioned this earlier. And they have the worst front office in the league. Last. That's what I have for them. Moving right along here. Let's move to the AFC South. Maybe not a surprise here as I have Houston winning the division. Their defense is fast, fiery, and ferocious with Will Anderson out there as their leader. With the second highest pressure rate in the NFL, just behind the Browns, and second in interceptions as well with 19. They allowed the lowest completion percentage last year at 58.8%. But I think the big question there for their team is Stroud going to bounce back from what was a so-so 2024 season? It wasn't all his fault. I mean, Joe Mixon was hurt a lot. I think he's still hurt right now, and that's going to be an issue. And Nico Collins, great wide receiver, but he was hurt part of the year too. So they got to stay healthy. That should help Stroud out. I don't think they have a ton of competition in the division. So I do think, yes, they will win and make the playoffs. Indianapolis, their quarterback play, I think the phrase for them is quarterback play last year that was unwatchable with Richardson is upgraded to poor quarterback play that is watchable with Jones. That's my thought.
You think
there.
Daniel Jones is watchable?
I think he's watchable, but I don't think he's going to play that great. The best thing that could happen for him is what happened the year the Giants went to the playoffs. Be a game manager. Right? Don't put the ball up in the harm's way when you don't see the receiver open. If they're open, throw it to them. If they're not, run with it or hand it off or dink and dunk it. That would be his best strategy. And I think if he can do that, they have Taylor. They have Tyler Warren. They have Josh Downs. They have Mitchell. They have Alec Pierce. They've got some talent. And they have, I think, one of their coaches, a very good coach. I just think look what he did. He had 13 games last year with an 8-point margin with Richardson as their quarterback or Joe Flacco. That's pretty good. I think if Jones can be a good game manager and not turn the ball over, and Taylor can have a good year, and their defense is serviceable, they could be a playoff contender. I have them second in the division. Moving along, Jacksonville. Last year they had 13 one-score games and went 3-10 in those games. And so they've got to find a way to fix that. Their defense was horrible, 2.4 points per drive. They do have Brian Thomas Jr., and now they've added Travis Hunter. So they've got some big game talent out there at receiver. But the question is, how is Lawrence going to play? I mean, he played lousy last year. He got hurt. And he got that great big contract. We both feel that, he hasn't earned $1 of that contract so far. We'll have to see how he does this year. He has what is supposed to be a genius and a head coach in terms of managing the offense. Liam Cohen. And, that remains to be seen. He's got to stay healthy. I mean, that is key. Mac Jones is the backup. He had some.
Not anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's on San Francisco.
He went to San Francisco, right? Who's the backup now at Jacksonville?
Oh, I'll look that up. You
okay.
keep going about it.
All right. So my next pick, so I have them at third. The next pick, not too much of a surprise, is Tennessee. Remember Cam Ward? Does anyone remember who he is? He was the first-round pick, the first pick in the NFL draft this year. Number 1, quarterback. And he's going to be out there, and we'll have to see how he does. He's going to have a decent offensive nucleus around him, and the Tennessee has a very good defense. Simmons, Sweat, Brownlee Jr., McQuarrie, they fly around and make a lot of plays. If Cam Ward can be exciting and kind of be sort of a Jaden Daniels type, for Tennessee, who knows? Maybe they could knock off the Jaguars and be third, but we'll have to wait and see.
Wow. Nick Mullins, by the way.
Nick Mullins is that backup. I know. He throws an interception for every other pass he throws. Okay, now we're at the AFC West, and I start with, not too surprisingly, the Kansas City Chiefs, although maybe it's a little bit of a surprise this year. Given the way Denver is looking and is predicted to do well. But I'll have something to say about them in a minute. How did Kansas City get to the Super Bowl last year when they were 28th in explosive pass plays? They were 30th in explosive rushing plays. The Raiders were the only other team in the bottom 5 in both of these categories. Also, they were 4th in explosive plays surrendered and 3rd in explosive run rate surrendered. Somehow they managed to make the Super Bowl. How did they do that? Well, the 3rd and 4th down conversions. They always manage somehow to make that 3rd or 4th down conversion. They have great coaching, right, with Andy Reid. They led the league with 6.5 plays per drive. They have a receiver core that will be better this year, I think, with Worthy another year under his belt, and Rice returning from injury. They also have Hollywood Brown, and maybe even Travis Kelce will rise to the occasion. And on D, they have Chris Jones. So there's still a division winner in my mind. Whether they get deep into the playoffs this year is something maybe we'll talk about in a few minutes. Second, I like Denver a lot, and who knows, maybe they'll knock off Kansas City, but I don't think this year. Bo Nix got better as the season went on. They made the playoffs. Marvin Mims played very well. The defense has the league highest sack rate at 8.9% and total sacks at 63. They were 1-6 in close games. That's what they've got to fix. They need to win the nail biters. That's something. If they can do that, I think they'll be fine, and I do have them making the playoffs. Next, I have the Los Angeles Chargers, and this is, I guess I would have to say, the strongest division in the AFC this year because I have 3 teams making the playoffs. They got a great coach in Jim Harbaugh. He got them to the playoffs when the year before they were horrible. Justin Herbert played well in the regular season last year, but not so much in the playoffs. He was really quite poor, actually. Lab McConkey is back with them. He had a great season last year. He was the one player that played well for them in the playoffs. They picked up Najee Harris as running back. I think that's a nice addition. The defense is not as a high blitz or takeaway team, but it's a solid defense, and I think it's well coached. So I see the Chargers getting back to the playoffs again in 2025. Last but not least of my picks for the AFC, and you might not be too surprised, is the Las Vegas Raiders. They traded for Geno Smith, which I think is a plus. He's a high-risk, high-reward quarterback who completes the really tough passes. They have Brock Bowers, who is a record-setting tight end. They drafted Ashton Genty, who was the best running back in the draft, and it'll be fun to watch him play. Pete Carroll's a good coach. I think he was a nice addition. He's getting a little up there in years, but hey, I like an old coach. Aside from Max Crosby, the defense is really bad. So those are my picks.
I think you're going to be very surprised when you see my picks.
Maybe.
I'll just throw it out there for right now. I like them. I like them all, and you'll see why. Let's be with my picks now.
Do you have anything to say about mine? Or you want to do yours first?
Once you see my picks, you'll now realize why I'm not saying much.
I hope they're very different. That makes for good discussion.
Well, then wait and see, because let's jump into it.
Here you go.
My AFC picks doing pretty well over the past. Last year, I had a win-loss pick rate of 77%. So going into this year, when we're picking teams to win and lose week by week, 77% win rate from me. So hopefully I can get some of these predictions right when it comes to the standings themselves. So let's jump in with the AFC East. The number one team, obviously, is the Buffalo Bills, and I do have them making the playoffs. They're by far the best team in the AFC East, as well as they have an opportunity to get the number one seed in the AFC totally, because I think that the AFC is going stronger. There are some very bad teams in the AFC, not as many horrible teams in the NFC, but I do think there is a massive gap between really great and then bad. I don't think there's a lot of middle teams in the AFC compared to the NFC. So I think the NFC for us is going to be a little bit more challenging to figure out, how these standings line up, by division when we do our NFC picks next week. But I do have the Buffalo Bills by far. They have the reigning MVP candidate. I think he's out here to finally beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, and the only opportunity he has of doing that is by making the playoffs, which I think he will do. I'll give him a yes in the playoff category, as well as topping off the AFC East. The number two team, a little bit of surprise for me, but if you look at the schedule, if you look at the team structure, if you believe in the coach, and then you just look at the rest of the remaining teams in this division, I got the Patriots at number two, and I do not have them making the playoffs. I really debated putting them in as sort of a dark horse candidate, but you got to look around the AFC and realize there's a lot of really good teams, and the Patriots are just getting there. They're not there yet, but they're close enough. They're too new of a team. All the draft picks, basically, from 2021 to 2024, 95% of them are gone, including a person who got released today, former first-round pick Cole Strange just got released. So Bill Belichick's picks, again, as we all thought, congratulations. About 95% of them are no longer on the team anymore. But yeah, the Patriots are getting there. I believe in their coach. I believe in their quarterback. I love Travion Henderson pick. He's already, the first play of preseason was a kick return touchdown. Love that. Ramondre Stevenson has a fumble issue, so by getting this running back, who I think at some point, if he's not already, will be the running back one for this team. Team. I think it's a great pickup for the New England Patriots, drafting him, I believe, in the second round. I got the Patriots in number two spot. They're still growing. They're going to get there. They're not there yet. I have them in number two. Number three, Miami Dolphins. This is basically because you have really good play and really good potential for 70% of the season. And then what happens? Most of the country puts on a sweater. Tua, Mike McDaniels, this team gets ice cold. So you have Tua playing well when it's warm out. These are the numbers. This is not opinion. These are just straight facts. When Tua doesn't play in sub 50 degree weather, you have if he doesn't play in sub 50 degree weather, you have a pretty good shot at winning those games. But the only issue is the games that matter the most are in December, back end of November, December, and then January. That's where you'll see the Dolphins fall off a cliff. So they have the opportunity to be good, and also on top of the fact that Mike McDaniel's offense and his scheme seems to be getting really old. He's right now number one in the odds to be the first coach fired for this cycle for 2025. Not great. You have Tua, who has an injury history. One more concussion, he may need to medically retire. You have no great running game besides Achane. Your offensive line needs some serious work still. Tyreek Hill is dealing with his, situation with the team. He has to rebuild his relationship with Tua and all this nonsense. The defense is still a question mark. You had to get rid of Jalen Ramsey. There's a lot of moving pieces with Miami. I really don't think they're going to be that great of a team. You have a pretty decent team for 70% of the year, and then when 95% of the country has to put on a sweater, the Dolphins freeze up, go ice cold, and fall apart. They're at number 3, but the only team that is somehow colder than the Miami Dolphins is the New York Jets. Justin Fields didn't have a great preseason. You look at his ability to throw the football when he was with Pittsburgh. He did okay in the short yardage situations, but on those deep balls, he didn't quite have the touch. And I think with Aaron Glenn, this team, like the Patriots, it's a rebuilding team. It's a rebuilding culture. And I think they're getting the culture part right with Aaron Glenn. It's now about bringing in the pieces to be successful. That's why Brady, Belichick, they established a culture, and then the success came after that. The Browns, they need to build a culture, and then you build success after that. Right now, it looks like the Jets, they're building a culture. I do not expect a lot of success, if any, to be honest with you. Justin Fields, will he be a great quarterback? I don't think so. Will he be good enough? Sure. Do they still need a quarterback and they need to draft one as soon as possible? 1,000%. These are my picks for the AFC East. Move on to the AFC North. Obviously, the first pick is the Baltimore Ravens. A tremendous offense last year. Derrick Henry, Lamar. People hate on Mark Andrews right now. He'll be okay. The offensive line was still pretty good. They had a very rough start to the season, and they finally grew into it and became a really, really good team. I think Zay Flowers is a tremendous wide receiver. Even in his rookie year, he was great. He's only building back. He's only becoming better. The defense is going to be ferocious as ever. The Baltimore Ravens, hands down, they're a playoff team. They're also fighting, obviously, for the number 1 seed in the AFC. The number 2 team, and I do have them making the playoffs, is the Cincinnati Bengals here. Like I said earlier on in the show, this is a do-or-die year for the Bengals organization. If they don't make the playoffs and have another 9-8, 8-9 record, I'm saying Zach Taylor should get fired. I think Trey Hendrickson, he will be gone. He's only on a 1-year deal, and he got snubbed by Mike Brown year after year after year when all he wanted was year 2 guaranteed money. I think he's done with Cincinnati. I think Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, they all have their money. They'll be fine. I think the defense is going to be a mess again. The offensive line's never healthy. I think somehow Joe Burrow's going to will them second half of the season. I think he's going to come out on fire. He's going to have a nice three-game stretch of just pure chaos going Ravens, Bills, Ravens. I hate that stretch for him, but I think they'll figure out a way to be successful. I have them barely making the playoffs, probably as a 7 seed. I do think they just slide in there, but I do have them making the playoffs. Number 3, Pittsburgh Steelers. I do have them winning 9 games, which is interesting when you think about how these playoffs will actually turn out to be. I do have them on the over for their 8.5 over-under. I think they'll figure out a way to get it done. They have an upgraded quarterback. They have an upgraded wide receiver. They have to figure out the Cam Hayward situation. He's trying to get more money. They signed TJ Watt to a massive deal. Their defense is going to be fine, and I think that this is actually set up nicely because after week, I think it was 6, Aaron Rodgers then went 18 touchdowns, 4 picks after being garbage in the first quarter of the season last year for the New York Jets. I think with the Steelers, he won't do what Russell Wilson did, which was lead this offense to average 14 points a game, and the defense has to carry, but because they carried through the first 3 quarters of the season, they were so beaten down and tired, they averaged 30 points allowed. I think Rodgers will even that out. Completely, raise the offense above 14 points a game the last 5 or 6 games of the season, and I think they'll just slide in, get to that 9-8 record, and maintain the streak. And then finally, the Cleveland Browns. I have them winning 4 games or less. They're the worst team in the NFL. Poorly run, poorly managed. They have a team that's really going nowhere. They have too much noise for the level of team they are. They're actually, in my opinion, 1 step below the Dallas Cowboys because the Cowboys can maintain a level of success. The Browns never really had a level of success, yet all of a sudden they introduced noise. And noise on a terrible team is never good. They're a terrible team. I got the Browns dead last in the AFC North and probably dead last in the NFL in total standings. Let's go on to the AFC South, which I think will honestly be, once again, reigning champions, maybe 5-time champions, 5 times in a row. I'll have to look at the numbers there, but I do think they're going to be the worst division in football again, and I'm going tops with the Houston Texans, the only playoff team in this division. I think right now the loss of Tank Dell with his knee injury is brutal. But you have Nico Collins, you drafted a wide receiver. I think Joe Mixon, he'll be back after 4 games or maybe a little bit more because of an injury. They could not activate him before the season starts, so he'll miss at least the first 4 games of the year. I think you'll figure it out. CJ Stroud will not have a sophomore slump, or he had a sophomore slump. He'll bounce back from that because now he'll actually be able to call audibles, have his say in what plays get called. He didn't have that his first 2 seasons. I think he'll embrace this offense better. He'll excel in this offense a little bit better, at least than he did last year. The defense will be what the defense was. Stingley Jr. is incredible. Daniil Hunter, Will Anderson, they're all incredible players. I think that defense will have a level of consistency. Like you mentioned, that's a top 3 team in pressure rate. So I think they're going to be perfectly fine. My only concern is the offensive line. That's really the only massive issue for them. Can they fix the offensive line? We'll have to wait and see. I think the surprise for you is I actually agree with you. The Indianapolis Colts are the number 2 team in the AFC South. Daniel Jones will be good enough. I think that's going to be a simple fact. There's going to be good enough. Will he make the playoffs? No. Will he go 7-10? Maybe. Probably. You'll have to take a look at there, see exactly how Daniel Jones plays. But I do think there's a lot of factors that actually help out Daniel Jones and his potential success story in Indianapolis. Because what he didn't have last year and the year before with the New York Giants was an effective running game, a decent wide receiver core, and an okay offensive line, and a competent defense. The Colts have a competent defense, a good enough offensive line. He has a plethora of wide receiver weapons and now a tight end weapon with Tyler Warren. He has A.D. Mitchell. He has Josh Downs. He has Michael Pittman Jr. He has a bunch of Alec Pierce, a deep ball threat. He has a lot of talent around him. And then on top of that, you have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. I think this will look similar to 2022, where he's not going to play MVP or anywhere near MVP type level. He'll play efficient, effective football, which might look like 15 touchdowns, 5 picks, like he did in 2022. Is this team going anywhere? No, but they'll look good enough. I think they made the right decision starting Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson, which leads into the 3rd place team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I still have to wait and see what Trevor Lawrence is. I keep getting told, well, he's this great quarterback. With Liam Cohen, he's going to be phenomenal. He didn't do well last year. He did okay the year before. He has 1 winning season so far. He's won 1 playoff game. I'm waiting for him to earn that money. And he hasn't so far. Mac Jones looked better with Brian Thomas than Trevor Lawrence did. I'm really concerned about the Jacksonville Jaguars. They don't have an effective running game whatsoever. I think their weapons are a little bit iffy. Their defense could have some definitely cold patches there. I don't believe in the Jacksonville Jaguars whatsoever, and obviously the dead last team is indeed the Tennessee Titans. I think that's going to be close. I do think the Titans maybe could overtake Jacksonville, but I think that there's not enough talent offensively for Tennessee for them to excel, at least above the Jaguars, who I think have slightly more offensive talent, as well as just better coaching. I do think Liam Cohen is better than Brian Callahan. But yeah, that's my AFC South prediction. And let's go to finally the AFC West. The Chiefs are number 1. I think Travis Kelce said he was distracted last year with the Taylor Swift stuff. Well, now that he's engaged to it, what will happen? I do think he'll lock in a little bit more. I think this is the last dance for Travis Kelce. I think that you'll have Rashee Rice healthy. He will probably miss some games, but he's going to be there at least the first 4 games, so you could capitalize there on your early success. Xavier Worthy, a gadget piece. Will he expand his role? Maybe. Maybe not. Who the hell knows? Offensive line, you got Josh Simmons. I think that's a great draft pick for you. That's what I predicted in my mock draft months ago, that they would draft Josh Simmons late in the first round, which they ultimately did. I think that this team's going to be good enough. I do not think they're going to win every 1-score game on crazy circumstances. I mean, my God. I don't believe that they're going to do that. I think they're going to be good. Will they be tremendous? I don't see it personally. I think they're going to be good enough to at least win the division. Number 2 team, the Denver Broncos. This is a team that could have won many more games, because all you have to do, if you flip the 1-score games, they're 15-2. The next highest teams, if you still do that, flip that, the 12-5 Buccaneers, Ravens and Bengals, the 11-6 Bills, Packers, Chargers, Jaguars. The Chiefs would have been 5-12. So this team, with a rookie quarterback, was able to win 10 games, but could have won 15 games if the 1-score games were just flipped. Their defense was insane. Number 1 in points per drive allowed. Number 1 in touchdown per drive allowed. Number 2 in punts per drive forced. Number 3 in red zone per drive percentage. They were number 3 in that. And in yards per drive, they were 5th. This defense was insane last year. And I do think with the addition of Hufanga, I think the addition of Greenlaw, those are massive pickups. This defense is lethal. I think this is going to remain the same tremendous defense. Vance Joseph, another year with the Broncos, is going to do another tremendous job. And I think with Joe Lombardi and Sean Payton, they're going to do an even better job with Bo Nix this upcoming season because they added a serviceable tight end in Evan Ingram, who wasn't that bad with the Giants. He wasn't great. But with the Jaguars, he was actually pretty good. And I think that the fact that the Broncos were that close to winning 15 games, if you just flip the one-score games, and especially the one where they were going to beat the 10-0, 11-0 Kansas City Chiefs, they were right there in field goal range. They kick a field goal, and it gets blocked. Are you kidding me? I love these Denver Broncos. The defense is going to be great. I think the offense is going to be even better because they let go of Javonte Williams, which was a tremendous thing. Because last year, they did have the #1 run block win rate team. And on non-Javonte Williams runs, they were #1 in short yardage conversion, #3 in 3+ yards before contact, #5 in yards before contact per rush, and the 5th lowest stuff rate. With them, Javonte Williams ranked 45th out of 47 in rush yards over expected and 46th out of 47 in percent of rushes to gain more than expected. He was a nothing factor. So they couldn't run the ball effectively with him out there. They got rid of him. Now, instead, who they have as starting running back, they got J.K. Dobbins, who, again, don't love, didn't do great with the Chargers. I love the R.J. Harvey pick. I think he'll be a massive X factor for the Denver Broncos. I got them at #2. And another team that's sneaking into the playoffs because I don't love the injury, Rashawn Slater's injury, the Los Angeles Chargers barely get in. My only concern, and I talked about this after the horrible playoff loss last year, where Justin Herbert played terrible. I think he had, 4 interceptions in that game, is Greg Roman. Greg Roman, Baltimore fans wanted Greg Roman kicked off there. I argued he was playing into the system, which was a run-first system. When you have Justin Herbert and not great running backs, you had Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins last year. And albeit, you did okay, you did all right, but Greg Roman's off. I brought up this graphic before. Greg Roman loves running the football. Ground and pound. It's perfect for Jim Harbaugh, but he loves ground and pound. The only issue is it hinders the quarterback's performance because if you look at these pass offensive ratings and then the record when they rush for under 100 yards, it's bottom 3 or bottom 5 in basically every single year. The best year was 2021 Baltimore when Lamar Jackson having a tremendous year. But you take a look at it. That 3-3 record when rushing for under 100 yards in 2011 for the 49ers, those were their only 3 losses during the regular season. So if your offensive coordinator is Greg Roman, you need to run the ball effectively. Otherwise, you're going to win about 30% of your games if you run for under 100 yards in a game. So I don't love the fact that Greg Roman is the OC. I think it's going to hinder Justin Herbert. And then we all look at, he had 4 interceptions during the regular. That's great. But when you couldn't run the ball, the offense stalled because you have a run-first, run-heavy OC. And you have a tremendous talent of Justin Herbert, who I think is now a B+ quarterback who hasn't ascended into the same category as a Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, even Jalen Hurts. He hasn't ascended. I think Justin Herbert right now is closer to being in that category than Herbert is because he has an OC that is run first and not focusing on developing Herbert to being a part of that category. I could be wrong. Also, having Quentin Johnston doesn't help when he drops every pass, but I do think the Chargers are barely going to get in. I think that the injury to Rashawn Slater is brutal because then you have Pipkins, I believe his name is, who was garbage last year for them. He started a number of games at guard. He was one of the worst guards in the NFL last year for the Los Angeles Chargers. So I think they sneak in, but barely. And finally, I love the Omarion Hampton pick, by the way. I thought that was a great pick. I believe I might have had that in my mock draft. They need to run the ball effectively. It's as simple as that. If you don't run the ball, the level of success says, based on Greg Roman-led offenses in his career as an OC, you're going to win 30% of your games. Simple as that. And finally, obviously, Las Vegas Raiders. Although I do have them winning. I think their over-under was 6.5. I do have them winning the over. I think this is going to be a very difficult division to succeed in. But the Geno Smith, don't love that. Kenny Pickett backup, don't love that. The offensive line, don't love it whatsoever. Defense, outside of Max Crosby, who else you got? Brock Bowers is great. Jacoby Myers wants out. So it's, what are you going to do? Pete Carroll, I don't love it. But yeah, those are my AFC predictions.
Oh, we're exactly the same.
Yeah, we are. That's why I said I didn't need a comment because we had the exact same picks. I was a little bit surprised when I saw that too. Your picks for you.
Well, we didn't talk about it, so that is a little bit of a surprise. Did the Chargers pick up another wide receiver to complement McConkey?
I believe Trey Harris. I believe they picked
Trey
up.
Harris.
I'll fact check that. In the draft, they picked up Trey Harris in the second round.
Yeah.
Amari Hampton in the first round. They also picked up Keandre Lambert in the fifth round.
Yeah, they need somebody because you're right. Quentin Johnson can't. He's got stone hands.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
He can't hang on to the ball. Yeah, it's
McConkey is a great receiver. It's just, what are you going to do?
It's going to be very interesting. Going to be very interesting, as always.
Of course.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll have to save these picks, and we'll be looking back at them about halfway through the season and see what we think.
Yeah. Oh, I think that we're actually going to be relatively close because it's always, okay, what teams are going to fall out of the playoffs, what teams are going to fall in. I think that because the gap is so far from great teams to bad teams, there is a gaping hole between serious playoff contenders and then teams that are trying to get into the playoffs and, fighting for a playoff spot. I think, 9 wins may not get you in the playoffs. I think you need the 10, the 11 wins to get you in the playoffs because I don't see the Ravens dropping off, the Bills dropping off. I don't see any of them dropping into the 10-11 win category. These are 12, 13 win teams.
You got a number of teams that could win 12 games.
Yeah. I think the NFC, there are some great teams, there's some mid teams, and then there's some bad teams. But there is that, it's a bit more level. It's a bit more linear. This is just really great, terrible. Because I think the Raiders, they're going to be good. I think they might be the only good team. I think the Colts aren't great. Titans aren't great.
I think the Patriots could
Jaguars
be a good team.
Great.
The Patriots might be a good team.
Might be. That's the thing. Might be.
It's all up to Drake May, I think. If he turns the ball over the way he did in his rookie year, then they won't be very good.
Maybe. I will give a shout out to you. Record-breaking show. You didn't know I was going on. I was looking at the numbers here. Record-breaking show by more than double our view count. Based on what I'm seeing, 256 total views.
Oh, well,
so
thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate that.
the most concurrent viewers we've ever had on the show. So from us to you, thank you so much for tuning into today's show. We'll be back next week. Next week starts the 2-show-a-week thing. We got the NFC predictions. We're talking, that's the break week, I believe. So, yeah, actually, this is the break week. So next week, next Tuesday, we make our Thursday night predictions, week 1 of the NFL season. So things are heating up. That starts the 2-show-a-week situation we've always had for the last 3 years, basically. So make sure you tune in for that. Week 1's approaching rapidly. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We're your co-hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, hopefully without any technical difficulties, right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasts.